Maya Sharma woke to the familiar hum of the ceiling fan spinning above her. The morning light seeped through half-closed blinds, tracing faded lines across the beige walls of their apartment. Rohan, her husband of 7 years, was already dressed, sitting at the edge of the bed, tying his shoelaces with quiet precision. "Breakfast on the table," he said, without turning. "Thanks," she murmured, watching his back. Their conversations had become fragments, necessary but emotionless. The days, once filled with late-night laughter and spontaneous road trips, had given way to silent commutes and screen-lit dinners. Rohan was dependable, kind in the most structured sense, but the emotional presence he once exuded now felt like a closed door she no longer had a key to. At work, the hum was different. The office buzzed with the kind of energy Maya hadn't felt in years. Light-hearted sarcasm, team huddles, shared playlists humming faintly from someone's desk speaker. It was here, among the tapping keyboards and scent of roasted coffee, that Maya met Arjun Mehta. He wasn't the kind of man who turned heads immediately. He was understated, always in crisp shirts with sleeves casually rolled, his smile more thoughtful than showy. He worked in sales, 2 floors above her HR office, but found frequent excuses to visit. Their first real conversation happened at the printer, over a jammed tray and a sarcastic comment about outdated machines. "You'd think a company this big could afford a printer that doesn't eat paper for breakfast," he quipped. She chuckled, surprised by her own amusement. Maybe it's on a strict carb diet. That moment, small, seemingly inconsequential, was the beginning of something that neither of them named. In the weeks that followed, their encounters multiplied, sometimes deliberate, sometimes accidental. A shared elevator ride, a coffee. She didn't ask for but found on her desk with a sticky note, "Try this. No sugar, just like you said." A 5-minute conversation that stretched into 10, 15, until someone interrupted with real work. Arjun listened with an attentiveness Maya hadn't experienced in years. He asked about her ideas during a joint project, remembered her favorite. Author noticed when she changed the way she pinned her hair. Rohan never commented on her hair anymore, or her dress, or the small ways she tried to keep a spark alive at home. One Friday afternoon, while reviewing a performance file together in the conference room, Maya mentioned, almost absently, "Sometimes I feel like I live 2 lives. One at home, one here." Arjun didn't flinch. He closed the file gently, looked at her, not intrusively, but with a kind of quiet understanding that made her breath hitch. "Which one feels more like you?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. By the time the office emptied out, and only the cleaners remained, Maya sat at her desk staring at her phone. Rohan had texted a reminder to pick up detergent. Nothing else. No, "How was your day?" or "Miss you." Just detergent. She stared at the message until the letters blurred. Arjun passed her on the way out, slowed, and said, "You should get some rest. You look heavy today." "Yeah," she said. "It's been a long week." He nodded, then hesitated. "You want to grab a coffee? Just as coworkers who've survived a brutal HR audit?" She considered it. For a moment, the idea seemed harmless. 2 colleagues winding down. But her heart beat faster. Not from guilt, from anticipation. "I shouldn't," she said finally, offering a polite smile. "Maybe another time." He didn't push, just smiled back with a quiet, "All right, take care, Maya," and left. As she gathered her things, her reflection caught in the darkened office window. She didn't recognize the look in her own eyes, half curiosity, half ache. That night, lying beside Rohan in the same bed they'd shared for years, Maya watched the ceiling and listened to his steady, sleeping breath. She wanted to reach for him, say something, anything, that would bridge the distance. But her hand stayed on her stomach, still and uncertain. And somewhere in the quiet, a seed took root, not of betrayal, yet, but of longing. A longing to be seen, to be heard, to feel again. 3 days passed before I decided to follow him. It was a quiet Thursday evening. The air was warm, but a slight breeze carried the scent of damp earth. I waited until Dadaji stepped out again, his shirt neatly tucked, shoes polished, and a folded handkerchief in his pocket. Something about his posture felt rehearsed, as though he had memorized this evening. I counted to 50 before slipping on my sandals and quietly following. He didn't see me. The fading daylight wrapped around us both, but I kept to the edges of the road, ducking behind parked scooters and hedges. My heartbeat mimicked my footsteps, quick, light, nervous. He turned at the corner past the community park. I slowed, peering around a neem tree, and then I saw her. A woman, standing beside the worn bench under the Gulmohar tree. She was dressed simply in a green sari, hair tied back in a low bun. I couldn't see her face clearly, but her posture was open, familiar. Dadaji approached with a slight smile, and she responded by placing a hand lightly on his arm. They sat close, knees nearly touching. I crouched behind a crumbling wall and watched them in silence. No one else passed. No dogs barked. It was as if the world had made space for this meeting. They didn't speak much, a few words here and there. Mostly they just looked at each other. He laughed once, softly, in that unguarded way people do, when they feel entirely safe. She reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. The realization struck me with the quiet violence of cold water. This was not the first time. Whatever this was, it had history. I stayed only a few minutes longer. The weight in my chest grew too heavy, and I couldn't bear the sight of them framed like that. Gentle, private, something sacred and secret. Back home, I sat in the dark kitchen, not bothering to turn on the light. The ceiling fan creaked above me. I tried to replay what I'd seen like a puzzle I could solve, but there were no missing pieces, only answers I didn't want. That night, I dreamt of my grandmother. Not as I remembered her. Stern, silver-haired, always adjusting her spectacles, but younger, vibrant, laughing while arranging marigolds in her hair. In the dream, she turned to look at me, but her eyes were blank. I woke up shaken, my pillow damp. The next morning, I avoided Dadaji. I kept to my room, pretending to be busy with lectures. I heard him in the hall, moving with that same calm pace, humming an old tune. My stomach turned. By evening, I couldn't keep the questions in anymore. He was watering the plants on the porch when I stepped out, pretending to casually examine the rose bush. Dadaji, I began without turning to him. Do you believe people can love more than once? He didn't stop moving, but I felt the pause in his breath. He replied evenly, Yes, sometimes once isn't enough. I looked up at him then. Even if they've been married? Even if they had someone? He met my eyes. No flinch, no guilt. Loving one person doesn't always mean you forget another, he said. The heart is layered, not clean, not simple. I didn't ask more. I couldn't. Later that night, he left again. I didn't follow this time. Instead, I walked into his room after he'd gone. The door was slightly ajar. His desk was tidy, a small framed photo of my grandmother in the corner, but beside it lay something I hadn't noticed before, a tin box, rusting at the hinges. I opened it carefully. Inside were letters, dozens. all addressed to a name I didn't recognize at first. Neela. The oldest dated back to 1973. I skimmed. The top one. The handwriting was unmistakably his, steady, elegant. I saw you again in the corridor today. You looked away, as you always do. I sometimes think our story ended before it began, but I carry it with me still. Yours, always. I closed the box. My throat felt tight, not from anger, but from the ache of understanding too much too quickly. Back. In my room, I sat on the floor with my knees pulled to my chest. The silence around me wasn't empty anymore. It was full. Full of things left unsaid. Of a history I hadn't been told. Of a version of my grandfather I had never met until now. And still, I didn't know what hurt more. The betrayal of my grandmother's memory, or the thought that my grandfather had loved someone so deeply, and yet so quietly, for all these years. As I lay in bed that night, I heard the front gate open again, then the soft click of it closing. He was home. But part of me wondered if he ever truly left that bench under the Gulmohar tree. The unraveling didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly, like most truths do. It began with a receipt. Maya had carelessly left it tucked into her laptop sleeve. A small restaurant outside the city. A date that didn't match any work trip. A name Rohan didn't recognize scribbled at the top. Arjun Mehta. He didn't ask that night. Instead, he made dinner, a rare gesture these days, and watched her carefully over the rim of his glass. Maya noticed the way he studied her, as though trying to solve an equation that had suddenly changed variables. The next morning, he said, it plainly, "Who is Arjun?" Maya froze mid-step, coffee spilling slightly from the mug in her hand. Her instinct was denial. But something in Rohan's voice, calm, quiet, defeated, made her stop. "He's someone from work," she said. "That's not what I asked." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of things neither of them wanted to say aloud. She sat down, placed the mug carefully on the table. "I didn't plan for it. I didn't wake up one day looking for something else." "Did you fall in love with him?" Maya looked away. "I don't know." He nodded slowly. "How long?" "Months." Rohan closed his eyes, as if bracing himself against an unseen impact. But when he spoke again, his voice didn't rise. "I thought you were just pulling away because of stress. I didn't realize it was because you were already gone." "I wasn't gone," she whispered. "Not at first." That night, Rohan packed a small bag and left. He didn't say for how long. The door clicked shut behind him with a softness that felt crueler than any scream. Left alone in the quiet apartment, Maya wandered the rooms like a guest in her own life. She picked up their wedding photo, her fingers tracing the smile she once wore with such certainty. Arjun called, but she didn't answer. She needed air, space, silence. The next morning, she sat in a park near their apartment, notebook in hand. For the first time, she tried to write down what had happened. Not as an excuse, but as confession. She listed everything she had lost, everything she had found, and everything that now felt impossibly uncertain. When Arjun finally found her the following evening, he looked concerned but relieved. "I've been calling," he said. "I was worried." "I know," she said softly. "I just needed time." He sat beside her on the bench, his hand brushing hers. "Is it over? With him?" She hesitated. He left. "And us?" he asked. Maya turned to face him. "You've been good to me, Arjun. You made me feel seen again. And I'm grateful. Truly." but I don't know if this is what I want, or if I just wanted not to feel alone. His jaw tightened. So I was a distraction. No, she said firmly. You were a mirror. You showed me what I was missing. But you're not the fix. No one is. The truth hurt, for both of them. Arjun stood, hands in his pockets, and nodded. I wish things were different. So do I. He walked away without looking back. Maya stayed on the bench until the sun dipped below the skyline, the city lights flickering on like small awakenings. In the weeks that followed, she didn't rush to call Rohan. She didn't chase after Arjun. Instead, she moved slowly through her days, rebuilding a relationship with herself. She picked up hobbies long abandoned. She went to therapy. She cried when she needed to. And sometimes she smiled, for no reason at all. One Sunday afternoon, a message arrived. From Rohan. I'm going to be in the city next weekend. Can we talk? She stared at the screen for a long time before replying. From Maya. Yes, I'd like that tea. Not because she wanted to fix everything overnight, but because conversations had to start somewhere. And maybe, in that space between endings and beginnings, there was still something worth salvaging. Maya stood by the window, watching. As the wind played with the curtains, the apartment was quiet, but not empty. Not anymore.